Resuming debate, the honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not pleased to be here having this debate today. I'm really disappointed that the Liberals did not just do the right thing, keep committee going, and do the work that needs to be done there. The National Defence Committee should be hosting Katie Telford. Instead, we're here in this House having this debate. Why is that the case? Well, I guess that's a question that only the National Defence Committee chair can answer. I know some of my constituents might be asking, why does the Defence Committee need to hear from the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford? Well, here's the answer. We need to know who is responsible for the failure to investigate the 2018 allegations against General Vance, because that failure led to having him in office for 3 more years. Another factor is that the Prime Minister himself suggested strongly that his Chief of Staff knows the answer to this very question. So that should be happening in committee, where committee should be free to do its work. Instead, we have a Conservative motion before the House today that is directing the Government of Canada to fire a woman who may have had some very important information, but does not hold the power. Where is that power, Madam Speaker? Well, it is in the hands of the Minister of Defence and the Prime Minister. For the last several weeks, this House has heard a debate that all too often comes back to an interesting argument between the Liberals and the Conservatives of who did worst and who is most to blame. This is a conversation that simply should not be happening. The conversation should be this: what do service women in the Canadian military need now to be safe, and how soon can we get it to them? The issue at hand is the sexual misconduct in the Canadian Forces that is happening all too often, that the leaders have failed to stop. That today and in the past, women in the Canadian Armed Forces have not been safe and continue to not be safe. So those brave women call to the Canadian Armed Forces because they believe in serving this country, because they are ready to put life and limb on the line for us, because they want to protect this country, our country. They literally put their lives in our hands as parliamentarians. If this place makes a decision, they have to go. If the Prime Minister makes a decision, they must follow it. So these brave women, their lives already on the line because of their service, are hoping to listen to this place, to have a meaningful debate about how Parliament will work to stop the sexual violence that they are experiencing within their ranks. Today's solution: well, we will fire a woman who works for the Prime Minister. Please tell me that this place can do better than that. It is these women who are asking us to make a change, to not argue back and forth, but to get it done, to stop making promises, to stop committing to studies, but to do something. As a woman who has experienced sexual violence, believe me, I did not want another report. I wanted to know that someone would step up and stop it, would stand in solidarity with me, so I was not alone facing these horrendous challenges. Madam Speaker, the women who serve us in the Canadian military have had to face sexual violence, sexual misconduct, and then they are asked to be in situations, be it in a war zone, be it in the midst of a natural crisis, where they need their team to have their backs. Every step they take, they have to rely on their team, and that takes trust. All too often, the reality of way too many servicewomen is that they have had to have faith in the very person who assaulted them. Trust was a luxury that they did not have. And Madam Speaker, I can tell you this: for generation upon generation of women in the military, they did their job, even when their fundamental trust and human rights were being broken. And this House is debating, was it the current Prime Minister or the past one that was most problematic? Was it the current Minister of Defence or was it the last one? At this point, Madam Speaker, I don't care. What I care for is the action women in the military are calling on us to make. Today's debate should be about equality. As long as the Canadian government does not acknowledge the reality that a culture which tolerates sexual misconduct remains in place means a woman cannot serve equally, we should all stop everything we're doing and start focusing on making it safe. And I can tell you, Madam Speaker, firing the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff will not fix that. I think all parliamentarians should be reflecting seriously on the fact that the Conservative government put General Vance in the position that he had and put him in the lead of Operation Honor. Then the Liberals promoted him. All of them ignored the whispers they were hearing, because I can tell you, Madam Speaker, those whispers are always there. Something profoundly wrong is happening. Stop asking military women to not blame this group, but to blame that other group. In fact, can all of us stop in this place talking about blame? I think it's time that we step up and talk about action. Concrete action that makes women serving in the military know that we, as parliamentarians, are standing in solidarity with them. That is not another report, Madam Speaker. It is action. It is actually getting to work on the recommendations put forward and listening to the voices of service women who have faced sexual misconduct then and now. They can help guide us. I believe that the amazing women who serve in the Canadian military need to hear all of us in this place acknowledge the realities that they are living through. If I were the Minister of Defence or the Prime Minister, I would say this. On behalf of generations of parliamentarians, to all the women who served in the Canadian military, now and in the past, who experienced sexual violence, we are sorry. We are sorry that we did not take the realities of your lives seriously, that we stood by and heard the whispers of sexual violence and turned away because we were too afraid to take action. We are sorry that when we ask so much of you, that you are still allowed to work in a place where you are unsafe because of our silence. We are sorry, and I commit that I will do something about it. I want to talk about responsive action because we owe it to the service women in the Canadian military. Many people will and have outlined the timetable today of the decisions made between the Conservative and Liberal governments. That timeline is absolutely devastating, and it tells how many times these women in uniform have been betrayed. The facts are before us. On April the 26th, the Department of National Defence tabled a report to Parliament with statistics around Operation Honor. 581 reports of sexual assault over the past 5 years. 221 incidents of sexual harassment were logged over the same period. These are the ones that were reported, Mr. Speaker. We do not know how many were never spoken of. All of the things that I know in my heart is that when we see something, we must act on it. So this is what action looks like to me. Stop hiding behind, it was not clear it was sexual misconduct. If you are not sure and you are in a position of power, ask every time. Assume the worst. Be relieved if it's not the bad thing. But stop hiding behind the silence of not knowing. It is literally destroying people. Understand that our systems in Canada, both inside the military and outside, are built to support people in power and not the ones that are vulnerable. We are hardwired to avoid things that are uncomfortable. If you are in a position of power and you're not uncomfortable, let me assure you, you are doing it wrong. Change the internal systems in the military. If we want to root out sexual violence, then the government has to put systems into place that make sure that there are power in the survivors' hands. And have supports in place. Do it now. Too many female veterans have told me stories that keep me up all night. Coming forward with sexual violence reports and then having to go to work with the person again. Not okay, yet this is happening. Women in the forces have basic human rights, and they should have confidence that leaders both understand sexual misconduct and will take action against it. We owe it to them because they work so hard for us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.